Hello, friends from Five Reasons. Welcome to our before flow. Before this fourth game of the series against the Milwaukee Bucks, we're starting without our friend Ethan Skolnick. He's going to be joining us in a little bit. But we had to start with, we're reading all your messages. Where are the guys? We're here. We're ready for the sweep, right? And for that, we're going to welcome Greg Sylvander, Brady Hawk, and Alfredo Arteaga. We're going to be talking about today's matchup. Is anything going to change from the past three games? What can the Milwaukee Bucks do something different, to try something different, to actually try to get a win, at least one win against the Miami Heat in this series?
It's funny. Without Ethan here, you have to go to a couple of spoisms. We have enough, and and essentially, like, I think that I don't know if Milwaukee has enough today because I'm scrolling, trying to find out if Giannis is playing. There's been no word of it. I think it's ominous the way that they're not announcing whether he's going to go or not. I know that Coach Bud went out onto the court and watched him warm up, which is not typical. So we're watching that. We're watching if Olynyk is going to get to play. I know that he's still kind of recovering from his injury. So those are kind of the things where we need to find out before we would really know. But ultimately, I feel like this is a game that the Heat can get. Alfredo, I know that when you logged in, you were already talking sweep and a funeral at that. Do you think the Heat are going to get this one?
They got to give them a moment of doubt because the only way Milwaukee gets back into this series is, of course, with a couple wins. They need this one today. This is the proverbial must-win game. All right, there is no tomorrow for the Bucks. So if I'm the Heat, I'm conscious of that fact, and I have to give them some doubt. You have to play a good first quarter. Don't let them in the game. You win the first quarter. The Heat wins the first quarter. They're winning this game, and they're sweeping this series because I think the Bucks will slowly come to the realization this is futile. We really don't have a shot in this series. It might be time to lay down, but don't give them any confidence.
I totally agree with him. I was going to say the same thing. I think that's the biggest key is just coming out hot in that first quarter, first half. I think if it's even at least a 2-point game in that first half at halftime, I think that's pretty much a wrap. I think that we saw it the other day that the second half has been the key in both games. But if Miami could just contain in that first quarter and just get maybe their shooters going, like I said before earlier on Twitter, I think this is going to be a big Duncan Robinson game. I think he's going to play free, especially with Milwaukee's defense they're going to be a little bit more hesitant with going totally at him. They're going to be going at a bunch of different things like Jimmy and Bam and different things. I think they're going to be he's going to have more free time with the offensive side of the ball. So I think it's just that if he comes out shooting the way he usually does, I think that's pretty much a wrap.
You mentioned Duncan Robinson, right? We've been saying the Duncan Robinson game is coming, and we're still waiting for it. What has to change? We got shooters. You're right, and you can buy that shirt at fivereasonsports.com. What has to change in order for Duncan Robinson to be more effective? What's going on with his three-point shooting so far?
Here's the funny thing is that I would actually argue that he's being extremely effective, and it's in a completely different way than we would expect because of the gravity that he's essentially like they're sticking to him like glue. If you watch, sometimes they're even face guarding him, which is just bizarre to see. And it's opening up things for all these other guys to get to the line, to get open shots. And so if he just continues to garner that much attention, I feel like he's doing his job. But eventually you would think that they would make an adjustment and kind of lay off of him a little bit and see if maybe there's other guys that they can contain. And that's the moment that we're hoping for. And hopefully today's the day where, they crank that up. Tyler Hero, a couple updates that came in while you were talking, Alejandro. Tyler Hero showed up on the injury report kind of out of nowhere with a hip. He is listed on the active roster, and so is Kelly Olynyk. So Kelly Olynyk is active. I don't know if that means he'll play, but he is active for the game today as well.
Going back to Duncan Robinson, I think this is going to be a game for him either way. I think even if they continue to blanket him like they have been, I have a feeling he's going to kind of utilize himself with driving to the rack. He's been doing that a little bit more each game. You kind of notice it a little bit more. The last game, he just wasn't getting it going around the rim, I think. He was just kind of hesitant. But I think if he just is confident with his ability to attack the rim, I think that's just the biggest thing. And I could kind of see him either way. If he doesn't get hot from deep, that's what he's going to do.
Yeah, we were here last round, really. We talked about it going into Game 4 against the Pacers. We talked about, now's a good time not to be trying new things, but to try to roll out some of the things that we did well during the regular season. So maybe today is a game where Kendrick Nunn could get extended a bit and play a little. And, just like last round, I said, and he did play a little bit at the end of that series. I'd like to see him get a little bit of run. Myers Leonard, I'm sorry, he forgot how to play basketball in the time that we came back from the hiatus. But yeah, this game, you want to take it seriously. You don't want to give any quarter to the Bucks. Deep down inside of that team is still a team that was headed for about 65, 66 wins.
It's very true.
So you don't want to give them any inkling of an idea that they have a shot in this series. So you do want to take it seriously. But I would like to see Spo sprinkle in a little bit of Kendrick Nunn, because I think he's becoming even more and more important as the rounds move on. Looking a little bit ahead, and we can, because we do have a 3-0 lead. If it's Boston or if it's Toronto, these are guard-heavy teams. So Kendrick Nunn's going to be important. So I would like to see him get a little bit of run on this. So that's just me talking selfishly with a 3-0 lead.
And we just got a tweet from Adrian Wojnarowski. Giannis is planning to play in Game 4. Right ankle sprain still there, but sources tell him that Giannis is a go. So here we go. Now there's no excuses for the Brooms.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he has to play, right? I mean, it could be his last game anyway, so why not playing?
Right.
So you guys think Kendrick Nunn is going to get more minutes today? What about Kelly Olynyk? We saw, you were talking about Myers Leonard. He did look slow. He did struggle against Brook Lopez. We all saw it. We were like, oh my God, this is why he's sitting out, right? He went from starting almost the entire season to being a non-factor in the playoffs, and this is why. And we saw it last game.
I think some of that, though, is just he hasn't gotten enough run. I think that just throwing him in there sprinkling him in every here and there, kind of hurts him. If he gets a little bit of a rhythm going, I think that changes it, because we know he's a knockdown shooter when he gets going. So, but the other guy you didn't mention that I think is going to be key is Derek Jones Jr. I think he's been playing really good on the defensive side. He's played pretty decent on the offensive side. He hit those 2 threes in the first half last game. So I think if he becomes effective, and looking forward into those Boston-Toronto matchups, they're gonna need help guarding the opposite guards, and Derek Jones Jr. could be one of those guys that can maybe stick a Van Vliet or a Lowry, or on the other side of things a Jaylen Brown or somebody like that. So he has the capability of guarding so many positions that I think they're going to continue to give him minutes right now because of how good he's playing, and to get him a bit of a rhythm heading into the next series.
I think you bring up a great point in that the Heat are finding out more and more that the way Crowder and Derek Jones Jr. play bigger than their size, and Iguodala does it to a degree as well, just by how smart he plays, that they're finding that they can get away with not having to have as much having 2 bigs on the floor ever, and then even getting to the point where in the last game it was essentially mostly Bam and then spot minutes for other bigs. So it's interesting the way that they'll match up against either Toronto or Boston, which now that's a hell of a series. It's amazing how one game can change things. If they're going to be able to continue to lean on that, where they can continue to just cycle in the wings and not have to rely on another big man like Myers Leonard, who hasn't looked good.
Yeah, and it's also interesting to note that Bam, coming off of that great game he had last time, he's, as the series has evolved. If you remember the first quarter of the first game in this series, as the series has evolved, you've noticed how important he is to the offense, and how they're basically sagging off of him and letting him make passes. So if they continue to do that, I think Bam can continue to find people. And it's just, this is a focus game. Like, I hate to drop a bunch of spoisms, but now's not the time to let go of the rope. So, yeah, it's time. It's time to just focus. And we're going to learn a lot about our team here today, even if they lose. The only thing that I believe is completely unacceptable is if the Heat get completely blown out today. That's the only thing that is absolutely unacceptable. We've seen enough of Heat Bucks this entire year to know that, they can't handle the Heat's best game. But we keep talking about it, and it might sound a little bit arrogant, but I don't believe the Heat has played a good game in this series yet.
Yeah.
That fourth quarter in the last game, okay, that was, that's not normal.
No, that was Jimmy, like with his inner Dwayne, like channeling that. Something it's interesting to think about, like in this environment where you're in the bubble and you're not having to go back and forth to a home game and a road game, and you're not having to deal with the crowds. If there was ever a circumstantial kind of environment that would lend itself to being able to come back from 3-0, I would think it would be something related to this, in terms of that you're not having to, we got to go to game 6 and win in Miami or something like that. But the way that the Heat have just completely outplayed Milwaukee all year, it's hard to believe that they could do it 4 times in a row. So I don't know if this is that series, but I think this bubble environment, if there was ever an environment where 3-0 you could overcome it, it would be this type of scenery.
I think this is going to be interesting, another test for Jimmy Butler. You know, he's showed up in every single one of these, but looking at it, him having the mentality of being up 3-0, let's kind of see how he reacts to this. If he has that same fire, which I think he will, you just kind of see if he has that same mentality, looking for baskets on the offensive side when they're going through a drought or something like that. And on the defensive side too, I think this is going to be another test to see if he comes out ready to go in that fourth quarter, if it's a close game and does the same thing with that same mentality that he's been, that's going to be another huge story.
You guys were talking about Alfredo was mentioning the first quarter of the series when the Bucks scored 40. They scored 40, but we stayed there close to, and then we came back. And then the first 3 quarters of the last game, Milwaukee was up by 12. It's not like the Heat was controlling that game at all. So maybe that fourth quarter is giving us that false representation of the entire game, because the Heat didn't dominate the entire game. That was not it. It's just the fourth quarter was so impressive that they came back and they just destroyed the Milwaukee Bucks. From those 3 quarters from last game, what were the things that were worrying you guys the most watching the Heat play?
One thing I pressed that was just the Brook Lopez thing. You know, he was getting going the whole time, and I was think that they tried to. It's kind of seemed like, I think Eric Spoelstra was a big part of that halftime adjustment, because they were going to Brook Lopez a lot. Obviously, he was shooting, but the way he was doing, attacking the rim and everything, it kind of seemed like they switched their defensive scheme a little bit to kind of stop him, and they did. And that's kind of a big part of the reason they came back in that fourth quarter, because he was a non-factor at that point. So I think that's the biggest thing. We talked about other role guys being stopped, obviously, other than Middleton or Giannis. So I think that was the biggest thing that stood out to me, is if they continue that kind of thing with Brook Lopez, or if they let him get going in the first half as they did last game.
I think it's a really good point. I feel like I'm Kendrick Nunn right now, and I'm about to get benched for our new starting point guard, Ethan Skolnick.
I should have the Goran shirt on. Here,
exactly, right?
Goran shirt.
Welcome, Ethan. How are you?
Good to see you. You ever waited 15 minutes for an Uber driver when you could have walked home in 10?
Yeah.
Here in South Florida, it happens.
Yeah.
All-Star weekend in Charlotte.
Oh, I remember that. Well, you guys left without me. That was the problem. You and the Cayas could have come.
Well, today we started without you too.
That's true. Yeah, that's we have enough.
I got benched, and I'll get Wally pipped and never got my spot back. I heard what you were talking about. I didn't want to get to one comment I just saw when I came in, but I do think that the fourth quarter has created the cocky Heat fan here, and again, through the first 3 quarters, this was a tight game. It's the fourth where it seemed like Miami pushed. Milwaukee did not push back. I think that Brady's point all along in this series about kind of waiting for somebody else to step up. I saw a stat where when Brook Lopez leads his team in scoring in his playoff history, he's only won twice. I think the Heat's entire strategy here is allow Brook Lopez and Chris Middleton to beat us, because they cannot do it for 4 quarters. They just can't. And so this has to be about Giannis. I know we're still waiting on that, right? Game time decision, supposedly.
Woj tweeted that he's planning to play.
Okay, so he's planning to play. By the way, today's episode is sponsored by YouBreakWheelFix.com. YouBreakWheelFix.com. I wanted to get the Vice wheels up there, but didn't get them in time. But check them out. They're in North Miami. They can repair your broken wheels. They can also refinish them in Vice colors or in Dolphin colors. Mention 5 Reasons Wheels, and you'll get a 10% discount. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned YouBreak Wheel Fix. You can see that on the left. They have all of those different kinds of cool colors there, and all of that. I went down to their facility this week, and it's really cool how you get it done. Just don't put your hands near it because they'll get burned off. But YouBreakWheelFix.com, one of our great sponsors. So check out Mark there. All right, so let's get back to it. Also, I think again the point here is Giannis cannot do this by himself. And so other guys have to help, but they don't have guys who are takeover players. In fact, the Heat have more takeover players. Goran Dragic can take over a quarter. Tyler Hero, we've shown, can take over a quarter. Bam Adebayo can take over a quarter with all the different things that he does. They don't have it. But I want to get to one other comment. I want to throw this at you. This comment came in. When is the national media going to stop talking about what the Bucks are doing wrong and talk about what the Heat are doing right? Alfredo, I know this is a big pet peeve of yours on all Miami sports, and you've been in kind of the TV production game too, so you've got a little familiarity with this. Does that change after this series, or if they win this series and play Boston, is it going to be what's wrong with the Celtics?
Well, I'm not gonna not to trash these people, but I believe most of them have watched the Heat for the first time the last month.
Or last week.
Yeah, or maybe the last week. And, I'm not going to call anybody, but I will. Okay, I'll call out Cassidy Hubbarth. She does a great job on ESPN. I don't know why she doesn't host the show anymore on there because she's pretty good. But, if you remember the first game when Jimmy went nuts in the fourth quarter, all her questions were centric or were around the idea that the Heat plays themselves into close games and Jimmy closes everybody else out. And that's not how the Heat play basketball,
Especially not this season.
No. So, there's a complete misconception, and forget about the TNT guys, the TNT guys, they look at the Heat as an anomaly. Like they're actually surprised that, like anybody who watched basketball this year is not surprised by the result. You could be surprised by the 3-0. Yeah. That's legitimate. But you shouldn't be surprised that the Heat is winning this series. You just shouldn't. But, here we are. The TNT guys are there, and they think that this is some type of anomaly. But come next round, it's going to be especially if it's against a Boston team.
Yeah.
If it's against Boston, you're probably going to get more of it. If it's against Toronto, then the Heat might get a little bit more flavor because what do we really have in our corner? We have Heat Life for Kendrick Perkins, and we got Skip Bayless right now.
do we have
not
Skip?
A good
I don't
place,
know. I have Skip blocked. I have Skip blocked everywhere.
And five
we
on
have
the floor. We have the five
Skip.
on the floor crew.
We have Skip. Skip has spent the last 2 weeks calling Jimmy Butler Wade 2.0, and he says that it's happening again. Whatever that is, I don't know what that means.
They're just making shit up. I mean, but who is the worst? If I was to say who is the worst, is it Coward? Is it Bayless? Is it Whitlock? Is it who
historically or this particular year?
Well, historically. Well, Jason Whitlock's turned into a Heat guy all of a sudden. I don't know where that is.
Because this year it's Cowherd. The things that he said. Yeah. Colin Cowherd has said some of the most egregious, completely nonsensical. Like, quite frankly, it's negligent and ignorant to say some of the things that he said this year. But I don't know if we racked up every single cold take from all the years that he would come out number one, but he may be damn close. But this year, to call Bam a 10-8 guy, to say the team has no shooters, I mean, it's just been absolutely so apparent. And I feel bad for Joy because she's cringing in those moments because she knows the team and she knows the game.
Well, yeah,
go ahead.
I almost feel like he's trolling her to a certain extent because he can't be this stupid. I mean, I understand everything is Lakers centric. People are letting Stephen A. off the hook because he's been on the Heat bandwagon lately. But I put that clip out there. Stephen A. is the one who said that Miami would never love Jimmy like Philadelphia did. I know Stephen A. has a Philly bias.
Yeah,
we loved him more the day he came. That was over.
I know, but Coward probably.
But I would give Stephen A. little bit of credit because I remember in November he was talking about Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson being something special.
He did.
That the Heat had and could be looking forward. But, he was on the same bandwagon as anybody else. They were thinking the Heat as a 2021 thing, not a 2020 thing, but they're a 2020 thing. The guy that absolutely, I don't know what happened, but he just hates the Heat is Charles Barkley. And I say that he hates the Heat
because... He praised him yesterday, Alf. He praised him yesterday.
But he keeps picking against them every chance he gets.
But he praised him yesterday. He praised Spoelstra. Of course, he also credited Kendrick Nunn, who has hardly played a role in the playoffs. But
he has big three PTSD.
I think he does. Well, look, I mean, all of these people were wrong, but now the roles have shifted. Where the Heat was kind of the behemoth team at that point, And now they're kind of this cute little team that can, right? And people don't even know how to put their arms around that. If they go against Toronto, I mean, the reality is there's no affection for Toronto in the national media here.
No.
So the Heat may get a little bit of love, but you're right, it's going to be completely Jimmy-centric. By the way, I'm sitting on a tweet today. I'm not even going to say it. If I say it, everybody's going to get pissed at me. All right, let's get back. Let's get back, Brady. I want to go to you on this. Let's get a little bit back into the strategy of this particular game. I feel to a certain degree like we're waiting on a Tyler Hero. I know you've credited Duncan Robinson, but I just think against this defense that Tyler has found more cracks to exploit than Duncan can. I feel like we're waiting on that 24 to 26 point Tyler Hero game today where he's the guy who closes this thing out.
I think that's a good chance of that happening, mostly because he's coming off the bench. I think his role is kind of centric around that offense, that he's capable of doing it. I think if he was in the starting lineup and he was being blanketed like Duncan is, I think it'd be a different story. So I think he has a lot of capabilities of exposing this second unit's defense, and he has found cracks in it. As I mentioned the whole time, obviously his shooting with his catch and shoot, but it's mostly his ability to attack the rim, how he's been doing just great around the rim in the mid-range. So that's just the biggest thing. I think he's very capable of doing, as we mentioned earlier. Kendrick Nunn's another one that could kind of stick out in this bench unit to kind of propel them to another level today, to get them over the hump, other than the starters. So I think there's a good chance of that happening, but I think Duncan's going to kind of have that breakout game.
Got this. The flip-flopping Stephen A has done this whole year has been embarrassing. Speaking of embarrassing flops, in the next series, provided that the Heat get there, of course, people are going to be infuriated by one of two people, either Lowry or Smart.
Yeah.
Kyle Lowry put on a flopping exhibition last night. I mean, he's literally prone out like this. I guess is from an opponent that we talk about matchups, just in terms of an opponent that you sort of love to hate. This Boston team isn't that, right? Like, not like they used to be. There's no Jason Terry or Paul Pierce or somebody mouthing off. They're pretty likable, right? Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. I almost feel like people are more tired of the Raptors, honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I also think that there is an ability for a series to get chippy against Toronto in different ways. I don't just maybe some Marcus Smart dust-ups can happen, but you're right. There's not that KG kind of thing. And also, like, there was a big three element to that was that there was just tensions ran high. I've gone back and forth on what would be the tougher matchup, and I know we're going to probably get to that at some point, but I'm starting to lean more and more in the Toronto direction, which I wasn't always heading in that way, but I think that may be a better matchup for Miami in the next round.
It comes down to Siakam for me.
Correct.
If Pascal's playing the way he played prior to yesterday, I really think it's easy work for Miami, honestly. I think that they'll load up on Lowry and Van Vliet as much as they possibly can. If he looks like he did yesterday, though, that's a different element, because then Bam's attention has to go to him. Changes the way that he plays a little bit. I still think Boston's a more challenging matchup, but I don't think we've talked enough about Hayward not playing. I think one of the Hayward played very well against Miami. You look at last season when he was struggling before that, and then he came back. Kind of his breakout game where it was like, okay, he's healthy again, was against the Heat, and he gives them a third wing where they can play Tatum at the 4 and spread the floor with all of those guys, and all of them, the 1 through 4, can all play make. Jalen not as much as the other three, but certainly the other three. I think that's big, and you know, if you look at it, if that series goes another, I mean, they said he's not going to play anytime soon. He's back in the bubble. I mean, this next series may not start for 9 days if the Heat win this one. You're looking at a week from Tuesday, okay? Let's see if Hayward's back by then, but I think that would matter in that particular series.
I like to employ the draft test, which is I try to draft 1 through 10 between the two teams, and if I do that with the Raptors and the Heat come out ahead as far as players. When I do it with the Celtics, it starts to alternate too much. So
well,
I consider the Celtics.
Let's play cocky Heat fan here. Let's play ahead.
All right.
Let's do it with Boston. All right, you've got Boston. Who's number one? Jimmy?
Tatum's a fabulous talent.
Right now, I think it's Jimmy right now. If you're talking about what he's doing with the going 7-0
in a 7-game series that starts next week, who are you taking to lead the team?
Jimmy. Jimmy will be my number one pick. Yes.
Is
So
Tatum
Jimmy's
2?
Tatum.
Yeah, he has to be.
Yeah, Tatum has to be 2.
Is Bam 3?
Yes, Bam is 3, but then now we start to get some Celtics here.
Or is
Kemba Walker.
Oh, that's a rough one. Yeah, that's a rough one. You see how it's gonna go, like picks 4 through 6.
You might even go Kemba. Would you go Kemba 4, Jalen? Well, okay. If you have Bam 3, would you go Kemba 4, Jalen 5 before you get to Goran? That's it.
Yes. I start to lean in that direction, and that's where this gets weird.
Yes. Yes.
All right, let's do it with Toronto then. Jimmy's first.
Mm-hmm. Lowry's second.
Yep.
Are you sure?
Bam's.
Are you sure?
Van Vliet.
No.
Or
No,
Siakam.
I would take both Heat guys. I'm gonna be dead ass honest.
It's a new Lowry. It's a new day. It's champion Lowry.
No, and that's true. So I mean, like Homer had off, Jimmy first, Lowry second, and then it's like Bam or Siakam, and like it goes back to Ethan's like comment
it's
about
Bam.
the way he's playing.
the
And
thing is-
if Bam swallows him up, then yeah.
Bam.
Not to debate Bam and Siakam, but the difference is between the two to me is that Bam is the consistent one. Obviously, the other day he didn't show up, but consistency I think matters over anything, and that's what Bam does. He brings the same thing every night, and I think that just sets Bam apart.
I would take Bam over Siakam, even though Siakam's offensive game is more refined. I think it does come down to consistency, and again, head to head. I mean, Bam has outplayed him head to head. I mean, and not just in the skills competition. People are asking here where the other Alf is. He's hosting the post game tonight, so that's
He's warming up. He's warming up.
Sponsored by Biscayne Bay Brewing. Hopefully, I got him enough beer. He's warming up. He will be completely obliterated. Actually, we got a new contributor, Tiffany Meeks, who's going to join us on the post game. Alex will be on the post game. And Greg and Brady will be with me on the pod. So Brady, I'm breaking that to you because we just made that decision before
Next man up.
So they'll be with me on the pod. We're gonna do both. I guess a couple more things. Let's just get into it because we got like 3 more minutes here. Who wins today? Greg.
Miami.
Brady.
Yeah, I think Miami. I think Duncan Robinson's going to have a big first half and ultimately lead them to a good amount, double-digit win.
Alfredo.
Miami. They win the first quarter. Milwaukee looks up at the scoreboard and says, "You know what? This is not going to happen for us." And they'll slowly, gradually just slink away into oblivion and the offseason.
All right, I'm going to address this. The new mic thing. I don't have a mic on this phone. That's the thing. I'm looking for a new laptop. Alejandro's laughing because Alejandro and Alex want to kill me about this.
It's been more than a year, but it's fine. We keep working on it.
I'll get it eventually. Does somebody want to sponsor a mic for me? I'm poor.
Yeah, that's a good idea. There you go.
Send me. Someone has all my money. It's not me.
Donate on the post game stream to Ethan's mic.
my mic fund. Actually, we're gonna do a double fund. The money's for my mic, and so I don't go to Orlando. Okay.
Yes. Keep Ethan here. That's a hashtag to use today.
Keep here. I don't jinx this.
Keep Ethan in Miami.
Up to Orlando in a week. I think Miami wins today, and I think it's going to be a remarkable story. Consider it'll be the second time that the Heat have played the Bucks in the playoffs. The second time they swept them, except this time it's not Monte Ellis and who was it that time?
The ghost of Brandon Jennings.
The ghost of Brandon Jennings and JJ Redick, who didn't want to be there, who was a pending free agent traded for Tobias Harris. It'll actually be, supposedly the best player in the world, although it looks like the best player in the world needs to go somewhere else. So that storyline is going to start. But how do we feel? Let's just close here. If they do win today, how do you feel about a 9-day break?
I like it just for the reason of Kelly Olynyk and Andre Iguodala getting that heel up. Obviously, Iguodala came back, but that ankle getting an extra 9 days is going to be very, very good for him. And obviously, Kelly Olynyk and Goran Dragic just seems to play good when he gets a little bit of a break, in my opinion. So I think that's going to
be. They got a week last time, right? A week off?
Yeah. You beat me to it. Like, I feel like it was the perfect amount of time. The way that they're relying on Jimmy late in games when he's already had to do some heavy lifting initially, I think that it lends itself because you're going every other day once the games start. So to start out and get some rest, and we've seen Jimmy in practice, he's in flip-flops chilling. Goran is kind of smiling, and they're doing their thing that way. So since you got those vets leading you, let's take this weekend. And also it gives us some time to do the cocky Heat fan stuff for a week.
Well, it gives us time, but one thing Goran did mention was that it got a little bit tedious in the bubble for 7 days without a game.
It's a good point.
And, Goran and Jimmy didn't bring their families. So they're just, like you said, they're chilling in the bubble but this is a long time now, man. It's going to be almost 2 months that they've been there. And so I don't think they'll lose their edge, but it's got to be a little frustrating for them. And for some of those who have their families there, it's probably going to get frustrating for them too, with nothing to do but go to practice.
You're right.
One thing he mentioned though before, when that last break, he kind of said that what they do with the practices, they simulate games because that's very helpful for him. So that's one thing Goran mentioned. I think that plays a lot of a factor, that they kind of in those practices simulate the games so he can get that same speed going.
But Brady, remember, they can simulate the games, but the last time they knew who they were going to play.
Yeah, this time KZ will have to be Tatum one day, and then he'll have to be Siakam the next day.
I'm gonna come off as the world's biggest Kendrick Nunn fan, but a long layoff can also help Kendrick Nunn find his game for the next round, and maybe we can get a useful 15 to 20 minutes from him.
Alfredo's not letting that go.
He'll be important next round.
We need everybody.
But are we sure though that Kendrick doesn't benefit off of more games played?
Yeah.
That if he's playing more games and getting a rhythm, that would help him more.
He might. You know what I would do? I would tell Goran, take 3 days, drink coffee, chill. Kendrick's gonna run point in the practices and just kind of get things going. All right, let's finish here. Final question. We've all talked about everything is gravy from this point for the Heat. They've already exceeded expectations, and I think all of us agree on that. I think everybody in the network agrees on that. Thank you, Isaac, for donating. We appreciate it. Also, thank you for the T-shirt buys. We see those.
Thank you. Genuinely.
I see all. Thank you very much. If you want to go to 5reasonsports.com, by the way, use the code FLOORSYOURS. No, I picked the wrong damn code. I'm sorry. Floor pass, okay? And you get 10% off everything as long as the Heat are in the playoffs. So go there, buy those shirts. Let's put it this way, though. If the Heat were to blow a 3-0 lead in this series, be the first team to ever give up a 3-0 in the playoffs,
calamity.
Do you still feel good about this season?
Hell no. I'd be depressed as hell. This whole offseason would be finger-pointing time, because obviously if you blow a 3-0 lead, somebody had to have played really, really bad to allow Milwaukee back in this. Unless they just take a bunch of injuries back to back, and then the Heat are left helpless against a team that is so much better than them because they don't have the horses to put on the floor. But if they lose this series,
the thing is, if there was ever an environment where someone could come back from 3-0, the bubble is it. I think Miami's outplayed Milwaukee too much for that to happen, but it would leave a sour taste in our mouth. Big picture, though, it actually wouldn't be that scarring of a thing to take place other than the optics of it. But there would definitely be a couple months where we would be having sour stomachs for sure.
And let me be clear. The Heat are, yes, they are exceeding expectations, but they're making new ones. And
it's true.
I said it in a couple of pregame shows in the past. The new expectation is you want to take 2 games from Boston or Toronto in the next round. That's the new expectation.
The new expectation they have to get to the finals.
Yeah, I think the expectation is going to be higher than that. I think even though we understand that the Milwaukee matchup was more favorable to Miami, the reality is Milwaukee was better than both those teams in the regular season. And, Miami has played with both those teams. I mean, they beat Toronto twice during the regular season, lost a tight game in the bubble, lost to Boston twice in the regular season, but on second of back-to-backs, and then beat them in the bubble. So I don't think – what's the stat I put up the other day? The Heat are now it's 18-5, right? 18-5 against the top other 5 teams in the Eastern Conference this year. And one of those 5, I think it's 18-6, actually. One of those 6 was the game they gave to Indiana before the playoffs because they wanted to lose it, or they didn't care if they won it. So I think the expectations should be higher.
I will say this. I like the Heat against everybody out west except the Clippers.
I'm with you. I think Houston's going to beat the Lakers. So should I just leave it there? Somebody said that I'm going to have a hospital fund if I go to Orlando. I just need people waiting for me on the turnpike to make sure I don't get up there. So that's much appreciated. All right, join us post game. Donate to my laptop fund, my headphones fund, all of our other funds, so we can keep producing all this content. Check out 5reasonsports.com and buy the damn shirts. I'm giving you a gift. We don't have to give you 10% off right now. We're selling them. So 10% off everything. Buy 2, buy 3, buy 5. Buy them for Bam's, I don't know, ancestors or children or anybody. Buy them. Just buy them for somebody. All right. We'll talk to you after the game.
Visit 5reasonsports.com. There you can buy the t-shirts. 5reasonsports.com. Okay, we'll write it down. We'll make some hats. That's written down. Thank you. Buy the shirts. Visit 5reasonsports.com. Nope, we are here just reading all your comments. But thank you guys for coming. And we'll see you right after the game for the post-game matchup, for the post-game, show, post-game show here at 5 Reasons Sports. Thank you for joining us. We'll be with you guys right after the game for the post-game. That's going to be produced by Manny Chang. It's going to be with Alf hosting it. So thank you guys for joining us, and follow us at 5 Reasons Sports on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you visit 5reasonsports.com to buy your t-shirts, because we have a lot of them, and a lot of them are the Miami Heat related. So thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you later tonight. Thank you, and go Heat.